Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome to today's episode of the Change for African campaign. So, fellow Africans, being on Tuesday, it's all about our second pillar of the Change for African campaign. This is our episode number 82, and our second pillar of the Change for African campaign is all about the potential that we have as an African continent. So, fellow Africans, as we near the end of these daily episodes, today I'll be presenting to you our pillar number 2 of the Change for African campaign, but I will be relating it to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, but its key target 4.7. Key target 4.7 times the potential that we have as an African continent. So, fellow Africans, the very key target is all about, remember the goal itself. Goal number 4 is all about quality education for every global citizen. But then now, remember, that's a global thing, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But then this one now is we speak this in the African context. So we discuss this in the African context to see, because we are Africans and Africa is our business. So we start by exemplifying Africa, seeing how Africa is this fast, because we are in Africa, and you can see that Africa potentially is the most richest continent on earth. But the current state of Africa does not show that or define that. So, fellow Africans, target 4.7 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is all about ensuring that all learners gain the knowledge, skills, and values to promote sustainable development, human rights, gender equality, peace, global citizenship, and cultural diversity. These are so many things. We are speaking about promoting sustainable development. We are speaking about human rights. We are speaking about gender equality. We are speaking about peace, global citizenship, and cultural diversity. Now, in the African context, remember it's a global thing, but we are Africans and Africa is our business. So we discuss Africa. In Africa, speaking about sustainable development, what does it mean in relation to the African potential? We realize that the current state, the African population, remember this is a key target, and things to do with the education. And remember, education is the only equalizer of different people, from different backgrounds. That is the only equalizer. So since it is under education, meaning that we need to approach that goal with a lot of sanity in us, with a lot of criticality in us. We have to be very critical. We have to be very conscious on how we approach this goal and how we are managing in terms of its implementation. At what stage is it implemented, and how is it faring on in Africa? Because currently, many of the African population, as to why they undergo or live in very hard conditions, it's because many of the African population they have not been able to get the relevant knowledge that is required in different fields, not only because they want so, but it is because of the environments in Africa. So speaking about the sustainable development, that even if we develop Africa, because we have that potential, remember, the very first thing that shows that Africa has potential is first to start with the natural resources of Africa. But then after the natural resources, we need what you call the human resource. The human resource that is able to manage these natural resources is needed. And now we have very few people in the African continent who have the understanding that Africa has a potential to stand on its own. How? Only by managing its resources wisely. And now when you are having a population or a leadership system in Africa whereby most of it does not understand that, now it becomes that Africa still lacks requisite people in place that can be able to manage these resources in Africa, to be able to now bring out the Africa's potential. Potential is something that people find it very difficult to understand when they speak about Africa's potential. But it's a very open thing, just a very open thing, but also very complex in terms of its definition in the African context. That yes, we have the natural resources, but then how do we harness, how do we harness these resources now to get the potential out of it? Because these are the things that show that we have potential. That once we are able to manage our resources wisely, then our potential is able to be unleashed and shown up. That's why we speak about sustainable development, and that key target. We're speaking about human rights. Even when it comes to managing of resources, you find that in some areas in Africa, some people are taken to, some people take some, the ordinary citizens, they take advantage of them just by violating their human rights. How do they violate? Even they actually displace people, just for the need of being able to go and take resources from that place. That is another thing. So meaning we are lacking people, and they displace them not because they want the whole country or the whole ecosystem or the whole people to be able to benefit from this, but it's because of some, just some selfish prerogatives, to them, that are entitled to them. So that is why we speak about the potential of Africa. It is a very complex thing when it comes to definition and actualizing the Africa's potential. Speaking about human rights are violated in Africa just because of some of those things. Gender equality, some people are taking advantage of that. Actually, when you speak about gender equality, that one of the genders is have a bigger say. And remember, when you want to have a civilized, Africa, when you want to have an empowered Africa, what we must do first is to make sure that everybody is given a substantial chance, everybody is given equal chance to be able to express themselves, and to be able to somebody is only given duties when that person is fit, by merit, when that person is fit to be there. But then you find that some people lack even the requisite skills, the requisite knowledge, to be able to manage some key areas, to be able to bring out the Africa's potential. But then people who lack integrity are put in these places, and then the potential is not seen. It is happening. It is something that people find it difficult to understand, but that is how it is. And then speaking about the global citizenship, of course, before we are global people, we are first Africans. Before we are to be spoken about, globally, we are first Africans. So we have to prepare our home first, have a level ground in Africa, have a moving ground, have a progressive Africa first, have an Africa that is key potential, or its potential is unleashed. Its potential is actually, it can be defined by what is happening in Africa, because currently Africa's potential, with what is happening, that is not the key, that is not the definition of Africa's potential. So meaning we still have a lot to do. And then speaking about cultural diversity, of course, we know that most of the African population, or the African inhabitants, or the real African people, we are now embracing some cultures that are some very foreign cultures that we were never used to. We need to first embrace our own cultures. We start with languages, we start with so many things, how we dress. Those are some of the things we speak about as Africa. We can be able to actually sell our own culture, to the other people. It's not bad to learn other people's culture, but then how are we valuing our own culture as a continent of Africa? These are very pertinent issues of discussion. So it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we bring Africa to the limelight. We bring Africa to be, the continent that was envisaged by the people, or envisioned, by the people who are there before, the forefathers of Africa. We all know these forefathers of Africa, and we are having new revolutionaries in Africa. You know them, all the way from the north to the south, west to east of Africa. We are having new people rising. That is why the Change for African campaign is here to make sure that everyone is now seen that Africa is a land of great potential, and potential must be unleashed, because we did have the potential. So fellow Africans, allow me to end at that point, and let's meet tomorrow as we discuss about our third pillar of the Change for African campaign, all about the resources that we have as an African continent. Thank you, and have a great evening.